From sanctity to spectacle, the Church of England's struggle for relevance in secular Britain. The Church of England is on its way out. In the last decade, over 400 churches have closed across Britain, and nearly 1,000 in the past 30 years. Church attendance drops year on year. In 2021, Christianity became a minority religion in England and Wales for the first time in history, with just 46% of the population identifying themselves as Christian, a drop of 13 percentage points from 59% in the 2011 census. From Archbishop Justin Welby's near-weekly parroting of woke sentiment to the desecration of historic cathedrals in a vain attempt to appeal to the atheist masses, the C of E's struggle for relevance is clear as day for all to see in secular Britain. Woke clergy. The Church no longer takes itself seriously. Relevance for the sanctity of holy buildings is in steep decline. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, leader of the Church of England, regularly espouses woke talking points in direct contradiction with the Orthodox Christian faith. In fact, in February of 2023, 10 archbishops from the Anglican Communion signed a letter stating that they no longer consider Justin Welby leader of the Global Communion, after the decision was made to green-light the blessing of same-sex marriage in churches, adding that they disqualified the C of E as their mother church. The decision to bless same-sex marriages represents one way in which the forward momentum of modern cultural moral beliefs operates in the dialectical sweep of history. Previously, the Church considered marriage, correctly, to be a union between one man and one woman. Following the introduction of the Marriage Same-Sex Couples Act of 2013, mounting pressure from LGBT activists within and without the Church to also conduct gay marriages has served to advance the cultural dialectic. The Church ultimately, for now, decided against conducting same-sex marriage, but conceded ground, opting instead to bless them, effectively recognizing their legitimacy, though not conducting them itself. This is fundamental to how the left agitates for change. Push for something radical, forcing a concession from the institution, complain that it doesn't go far enough, regroup, and then push for more radical reform later, extracting small concessions which serve to shift the boundaries of what is considered radical is a tried and tested method. In June of 2023, the C of E appointed its first trans-identifying archdeacon, Rachel Mann, to cries of praise from progressive clergymen across the Church. In fairness, appointing male archdeacons is standard procedure. This, along with the decision to bless same-sex marriages, shows the progressive impulse, the willingness on the part of the Church to set aside its historic Christian faith in order to follow or push the social conventions of the modern age. It displays a sheepish, desperate attempt to remain relevant in a culture defined by nihilism. Archbishop Welby has been a mouthpiece for the divisive ideas of critical race theory, tweeting in the aftermath of George Floyd's death, "I pray that those of us who are white Christians repent of our own prejudices and do the urgent work of becoming better allies to our brothers and sisters of colour." In February of 2020, Welby condemned the Church as deeply institutionally racist, calling for radical change and quotas of minority representation in church panels. The fact that the ideological rot of leftism has managed to infiltrate the highest echelons of this historic institution shows the extent to which the long march through the institutions has succeeded in this country. The desecration of churches. Without going into a boring and detailed explanation of the distinction between the concepts of high and low church styles, suffice it to say that the Anglican faith and the Church of England traditionally belong in the category of high churches. Essentially, high church practice involves following a more formal, traditional, solemn style of worship, preferring ceremony, ritual, and liturgy in services. This generally pairs with large, breathtaking cathedrals with stunning architecture and historic links. The reason historic churches were designed in the way they were is that they are intended to inspire awe and humility, to provide a window to the divine and a reflection of God's perfection, beauty, solemnity, reverence. This spirit of reverence has fallen to the wayside in recent years. In February of 2023, the 15th century Gothic masterpiece, Manchester Cathedral, opened its doors to ravers offering a unique clubbing experience. In 2019, Norwich Cathedral commissioned the construction of a 55-foot helter-skelter in its nave. In a statement which shows there still exists at least some C of E clergy with sense, the Right Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashton commented, "For such a place, steeped in mystery and marvel, to buy into sensory pleasure and distraction is to poison the very medicine it offers the human soul," branding it a mistake and stating, "They're not doing Christianity." Just look at the state of it. The Reverend Jonathan Mayrick apparently preached a Sunday sermon from the top and then slid down to join the congregation. What an embarrassment. What has the church become? Norwich Cathedral completed construction and was opened in the year 1145, less than a century after the Norman Conquest. The Church of England no longer takes its responsibilities seriously as a spiritual authority of the Anglican Communion, and such abominations are glaring proof of their contempt for those whom they serve. Rochester Cathedral, the second oldest cathedral in Britain, turned its nave into a mini golf course. It's malice. Hanlon's razor tells us to never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. But it becomes harder and harder to apply this principle to those in positions of authority and power. Time and time again, the progressives who have infiltrated the church spit on our cultural inheritance, make a mockery of the faith, and rub our noses in the decay of British tradition. The aforementioned acts of desecration are nominally intended to make church seem more welcoming, inviting, or, worst of all, modern. But the only effect is to alienate the genuinely faithful. It is a calculated act of sabotage. How far these decisions go to bringing in new worshippers is impossible to say. One could reasonably assume that it only puts potential converts off. Many young people today are seeking tradition in religion, and presumably any half-interested British youth will look at the C of E and see it for what it is, an off-putting, unconfident shell, a shadow of its former glory. The youth is inherently countercultural, and as it stands, traditional Christianity has assuredly become countercultural, but the Church of England is overrun with progressives. Nothing worth having lasts in postmodernity. The appeal of a traditional Anglican church is in its transcendent aesthetic beauty, its ability to link us to the storied and colourful past of this nation, and to allow us a dignified, awe-inspiring place in which to congregate and worship God as a family of believers, a fortress comprising God's kingdom on earth. The church is, unfortunately, rotting from within. Perhaps it can be recaptured. Perhaps it must be allowed to collapse in order that something better can take its place. Conclusion. The Church should not be involving itself in the contingencies of contemporary culture war politicking. It should stand as a bulwark of the faith, a sanctuary celebrating the eternal, a safe haven from a degenerating society, unchanging and unshakable in its commitment to the Christian faith. Yes, as unpopular as it may prove to be by the standards of 21st century Britain, that precludes the Church from conducting same-sex marriage and ordinating trans-identifying pastors. It certainly precludes holy places of worship being used as nightclubs on the weekends. I have no answers to provide, other than to say that in the Church, as in every other area of society, a reverse long march is needed. One glimmer of hope remains. The C of E itself may fall, but Anglicanism will remain, and perhaps that's more important. My faith in God remains unmoved, but my faith in the Church of England is growing very thin indeed.